Hey friends, it's Cassie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I have a 5 cards, 1 kit using the Brutus Monroe October Inspiration Box, which is called S'more Coffee. And as of filming, it is still available, so I'll have it linked down below. But yeah, I did an unboxing, and I'll have that linked down below as well so that you can go check that out if you missed it. But we're going to be making 5 cards using this one kit, so let's go ahead and get started. For our first project, I'm going to make a tag, and so I just used a tag die that I had from my stash and cut out several using some Macchiato cardstock. That did not come in the kit, but then I also used some of the craft cardstock that came in the kit. And I'm going to take the little travel mug die that came in this kit, and I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine using the Macchiato, then also some of the white that came in the kit, and then also some of that craft that came in the kit, because we're going to do a little paper piecing. I love this tiny little die because it was so easy to paper piece. And I kept all the pieces that I wanted in the Macchiato piece. That's that dark brown, which would be the lid and then just the outline. And then I'm going to take some washi tape and I'm just going to put that all over the back. That'll make it really, really easy to slip my little pieces right back in there, and then they'll just stay put where they're supposed to stay put. And it'll be behind so no one will see it. So then I'm going to take the sleeve pieces that I cut out with that craft cardstock and stick those right in there. And then there's some white pieces that I'm going to pull out and stick those in, so that way my cup will be white. And then the little circle piece, I'm going to take a green Copic and I'm just going to color that in quickly using that green Copic. And then we'll pop that out and stick that inside the little circle, and then there's just that last little bottom piece of the cup. And I just love how easily that was to paper piece, and you get this darling little travel mug coffee cup all ready to go. So we'll set that off to the side, and I'm going to take the coffee bean die. That was another one of those little 4 dies, and I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine several times. I want that to just cut out all kinds of little beans on that tag. And so some of those are going to come off of the tag. Some of them are going to be on there just fine, but we're just going to keep moving that around, turning the die, taking out the little pieces. You could keep those pieces if you wanted for another project, but then once I've got all the little pieces cut out, we're going to line that up on top of one of the Macchiato tags that I cut out. And I'm just kind of checking it to see, and this is where I decide I want to run it through one more time. And I actually like that it's, coming off the tag, because it just gives this illusion that there's more going on outside of the tag. And so then I'll just take some liquid glue and adhere that down. And it's just fun. Then you've got those dark coffee beans that are behind. And they line up perfectly. This is why just a tag die from your stash is a great way to go. If you don't have one, you could easily just cut this out. You could adhere everything down and then use your paper trimmer to cut that down a little bit more. I'm going to use some black Brutus Monroe foam tape on the back of my cup, and then some of the leftover Macchiato cardstock I'm going to stamp out my sentiment. And I'm going to do this for pretty much all of my sentiments. I'm either going to use this Macchiato or some Raven cardstock for my sentiments. So I used my magic powder bag on that. I'm going to stamp out my sentiment using some embossing ink, which is just some clear sticky ink, and then I'm going to cover that with my very favorite fine detail white embossing powder, which is the Alabaster embossing powder by Brutus Monroe. And then I'll heat set that till that is smooth and melted, and then when that's dry I'll wipe away the excess powder bag, and then I just use another like flag banner tag thingy that I had in my stash, one of the dies, to cut out my sentiment. But you wouldn't have to do that. You could just cut it with your paper trimmer, and then I'll peel off the release paper on my tag and we'll attach that down. And then I'm going to grab just one of the hole punches that I have. This is like one I got from Walmart or something. It's the 1/4 inch tag. And then using some of the ribbon that came in the kit, we'll put a little tassel on our tag, and then it's going to be all ready to go. And you can make a bunch of these. You could attach this to the front of a card if you wanted, or leave it just as is as a tag. But there you go. There is project number 1. For card number 2, we're going to take both of these same foilable panels, the ones with the cute little smiling marshmallow, and I am going to paint them pretty much the exact same way. I'm not using any water. I just have some Gilded Aqua pigment on my glass mat, and I'm just taking a dry paintbrush and I am putting some of that on there. It's really hard to see it right now, but when I hold it up in the light, it's going to give this beautiful golden, almost like he is a little toasty marshmallow. I love these panels that they've had in the kits recently. Well, I've always loved them, but I do like these that match up because I can use these on slimline cards. I did this in the last inspiration box, and it's just such a neat way to use the panels and stretch them a little bit that I decided to do it again. Because these are a continuing pattern, they're actually pretty easy to line up. And I'll show you that here in a second after I'm done doing all of the painting. But they're both painted the exact same way, and I'm not even going to paint the very bottom marshmallows because those are going to get covered. So I just slapped some color on there. I'll show you what it looks like in the light. That Gilded gives this gorgeous like shimmer, and it's perfect. Perfect for a toasty little marshmallow. So there they are, and the other one is the same way. I'm going to take some liquid glue, and I'm going to put it on the bottom section here, and then I'll put it on the top of this one, and then I'll adhere this down right over the top where it'll line up just perfectly. We will have to eventually trim that down to fit on the front of our slimline, but it's almost seamless. I mean, you can see it if you're really looking for it, but otherwise, check it out. All ready to go, all lined up. For our card base, I am going to grab some lunch bag cardstock that I've trimmed down to 7 inches by 8.5 inches, and then I'm going to score it at 3.5 inches. So this will make it a side folding slimline card. I think I've said this before, they're probably all side folding. And then I did have this leftover piece after I trimmed down my piece. It's about 1 inch, so I'm going to trim it to be 1/2 inch, and then we can use that on the inside of our card base. I do need to stamp out a couple of images, so I'm going to stamp out this darling marshmallow that matches our little foilable, and then I'm also going to stamp out the scarf because you guessed it, we're going to pair those babies up. I'll show you some of the coloring. I'm not going to show you all the coloring that I end up doing on all the projects because it's basically the same, and this would end up being a very long video. This is mostly about the card ideas, but I just put down 1 wash of the red color, and then I'm going to come in with a darker red Copic and just color in just a couple of those sections just to add a little bit of differentiation in the color. And then I am going to cut those out right on the line. Typically I don't do that. Usually I leave a little bit of a white border, but I want to add these two together. So I am going to take my little X-Acto cutting knife, and I'm going to cut on the inside of the scarf so that I can put my little marshmallow right on the inside. I'm going to take a black memento marker and go all around the edges. That just kind of gives it a finished look so that you don't really see that stark white from your cut. And I'll even do it on the inside of the scarf itself. But yeah, it just gives it a finished look, which is why I like doing that as well. And then we can add our little marshmallow to the inside. He's all cozy. He has a scarf. I love that. Oh my gosh, I love that. I do have to paint this marshmallow to be the same, so I'm going to grab some more of that Gilded Aqua Pigment and just slap a little bit of that on the marshmallow. And then he'll be ready to be adhered into his scarf. And he matches perfectly. So I also want to have some layers for this. So I'm going to pull out my Circle Foundations dies, and I'm going to cut out 2 circles, one of white and one of red. And then I can layer those up, and they'll fit nicely on our slimline. I'm going to take some of the Gilded Glitterstock and trim down just a strip of that so that I can put that over the seam. So just in case that does bother you, you can cover it up with something. So I'm going to cover it with that. And then I can put this down onto my card base. It leaves a nice little border around our piece. And then I'll take that same liquid glue and I'll layer up our circles. And then once those are adhered to each other, I'm going to put some liquid glue on the back of that and adhere that down to the front of our card base. You could use some foam tape, I suppose, if you wanted to, but I'm actually going to use some foam tape on our darling little marshmallow. And then I'll remove his backing paper from his foam tape, and then I'll adhere him down right to the center of that circle. I'm going to do the sentiment the exact same way I did the last one, just heat embossing that, and then I'll trim that down and then adhere that to the front using that same liquid glue. There will be a little bit hanging off the edge, so I can just flip that over and trim off any of the excess from that sentiment. And then I can adhere my little pieces to the inside of our card base, and that will give it a more finished look on the inside. So there you have it. There's card number 2, a fun little slim line using those foilable panels. Our third card is going to be a little campfire scene, so I have all of my pieces already cut and colored out, And now we're going to take a piece of the yellow cardstock that came in the kit, and I've cut this down to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and we're going to start doing our blending. You might be wondering why I grabbed the yellow. Well, my whole thought process with the yellow is I wanted a yellow glow from the fire anyway, and if I'm making a scene, this would probably be the one that would work the best. And in all honesty, I was actually just kind of trying and seeing if it would work, and I think it did. So I have used some Simon Hurley Midnight Snack, which is a dark navy ink, and I'm using my Ergonomic brush to just blend that all over that upper part of the yellow. And like I said, I wanted there to be a little bit of a yellow glow, so you'll notice I'm not completely covering all of that, but I am kind of trying to blend that in. And then once I'm happy with how dark I have it on the edges, we'll just set that off to the side. And we have another piece of the same yellow cardstock trimmed down, and we're going to use our fake plant on that one. And I figured that would be a beautiful blend because the fake plant is a nice, like, hunter green kind of, and putting that over the top of that yellow lightens it almost a little bit. And so it's just really pretty. Really, really pretty. So I'm coming in from that bottom portion and just bringing that color down, and I'm going to let that fade out. And the reason I want to do that is that will also kind of give the glow of the fire on the grass. So we'll deepen up the edges a little bit more, and when we're happy with that, then we'll trim down that panel so that it'll look like a nice bit of grass. And then we can adhere that to our other card panel just using some liquid glue. And it does, it gives a little bit of a glow, which is, I mean, that's what I was going for. So that worked out. It was a happy little accident, sort of. Well, not really an accident, but I had no idea how it would turn out, so I think it worked. And then I do glue down my fire. I do it a little bit prematurely, but I can work around it. I'm just forgetting that this is supposed to be a night sky, and I wanted there to be some stars. So neat thing about that little stick and marshmallow, I love the marshmallow that's on there with his little heart eyes, but I wanted some little toasty ones. So I colored 2 separate ones that fit perfectly over the top of that marshmallow. They line up perfectly. So I cut those out and glued those down, and then I stamped the upper stick portion of the first one again, and then I'm just trimming out that stick so that I can make it look like the stick is coming out of the top of the marshmallow. Otherwise it just looks like it's on the back of the marshmallow. So I just trimmed that out. It was really, really easy to do. And then just a little bit of liquid glue to adhere that down to the top of our marshmallow. So again, now it looks like it's actually popping out of the top of our marshmallow. And so that's how you can easily change your little marshmallows on their stick. So here is where I'm just using some makeshift masks, and I'm going to put a little bit of picket fences distress paint onto an acrylic block and then splatter that all over that background to make some stars. That will take a minute to dry, so I'm going to set that off to the side to dry. And while I'm doing that, I did get my sentiment ready the same way I had in the past. And this is a little bit bigger than my card base, which is fine, so it'll give me some leeway to be able to make sure that that sentiment is fairly centered. And then I can just flip that over and trim off the excess. And I just did that onto some Raven cardstock. And now I can adhere our little marshmallows on their sticks. I did want to make sure that it looked like they were being held outside of the card, so that's why the stick goes off the edge. Again, gives the illusion that there's more going on outside of the card. And then I can trim off the excess from the sticks, and you're none the wiser that those are just kind of out there. I'm going to adhere that down to my card base, which is some whitewash cardstock. That's another great cardstock base if you don't have any Not Your Mamas. And that's going to finish off our little marshmallow scene card. I love that it says, "You make me a happy camper." For our 4th card, I had to use that marshmallow puff, so I pulled out the Tread stencil. This is a previously released stencil, and I have some of the blue cardstock. This is cut down to, I think this one's cut down to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, so it's a whole front of an A2 size card. And I have just attached down my stencil, and I had used some pixie spray on the back of that. And then now I'm just using my embossing ink right through the stencil, just pushing that right through, making sure that I have decent coverage, and you can tell that I do. And then I am going to cover this with that marshmallow puff embossing powder. This stuff is really, really cool, but you definitely want to make sure that you have good embossing coverage. So, you know, if you don't, it's not going to stick as easily because it's a little bit thicker embossing powder. And so I had just enough, I thought. But this stuff is so cool. I mean, it is so cool. I would say normally, if you've watched me before, I'll say you'll heat set this till it's smooth and melted, but this stuff is not going to go smooth. It will melt, and it's going to puff a little bit, and you can kind of tell, watch as I'm heating that it's changing from that little bit duller white to a more stark white, but it's so cool how it puffs up. And I thought it would be perfect with that tread stencil because it just reminded me of snow and tire tracks through the snow. So I thought that would be a lot of fun. Another way you could probably use this powder is on anything with coffee related stuff, like our stamp set sort of is, and then the marshmallows, and also you could use it on the hat. How cool would it be on the fluff of the hat? I did trim that down to 4 inches by 5.5 inches, so it's going to go from top to bottom, but there will be a border on the left and right hand side, and then I'll attach that down to a whitewash card base. And then I did the sentiment the exact same way as before. So I'm going to put some foam tape on the back of my hat, and then I'm going to use some foam tape on my sentiment as well, but I do this a little bit differently. So I found when I'm using a large sentiment and I want to use foam tape, I like to attach my foam tape right to my card base. That ensures that I can concentrate more on making sure that my sentiment's going to be centered before I stick it down, because I've actually had that issue, and then I can just pop it down that way. There'll be a little bit excess, so I will flip that over and trim off that excess. And then I'll peel off the release paper from the hat. I just love this hat so much. It's just so neat and different than anything I've seen. And then I'll stick that down to the front of my card. And that's going to finish off this card. You make me a happy camper. How perfect is that? For our 5th card, we're going to pull out the fun little stencil that came in the kit, and I am just kind of holding this over some of the craft cardstock that came in the kit as well. And I've got some Grrr ink and a mini Ergo brush that I am just blending that ink onto. I am just holding it there with my hand, but if you're concerned about maybe getting it over on the edge, or if you want to make it darker, I would definitely suggest tacking that down with maybe some purple tape or washi tape or something. But this is working fine, and I just love that coffee stencil. It just is such a cool background. And then, yeah, so I'll just put that all over, and then I'll clean off my stencil. And as you can tell, I already have all my images colored and cut out, and I even have my sentiment ready to go because it's all the same as I've done before. If you really wanted to jazz up that background, you could probably use some glitter glaze through there or something fun like that. Maybe chroma glaze would be pretty cool. But yeah, so I just did some inking. And then I'm going to cut my sentiment down, kind of use my glass mat to line up the sentiment and tack that down with some liquid glue. And then I'll use some liquid glue on my other pieces. You could use some foam tape on these if you wanted to take it to the next level. And I'm going to have this coffee cup kind of hanging off the edge. I thought that would be kind of fun. And then we've got our piece of chocolate because, of course, chocolate and coffee or chocolate and tea or chocolate and hot cocoa go together perfectly. And then it goes with that sentiment, you make me melt. I'll trim off the excess, and then I am actually going to trim this panel down a little bit too on that left-hand side, and then I'll adhere this down to a whitewash card base all the way up against the right-hand edge, so we've got this nice little white border on the left-hand side. And then for a final bit of embellishment, I'll grab out the sequins from the kit, and I'll put several of those down. I'm just using the bronzy color, the coffee color ones, and I'll tack those down using some liquid glue and my jewel picker. And then once I'm done with that, that's actually going to finish off our 5th and final card. So we're going to take a look at all the cards I made today. I would love to know which one was your favorite. If you did, in fact, have a favorite, please leave that in the comment section down below. Everything I used will be linked in the description box down below so that you can get your hands on things if it's still available. If you liked this video, hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe because I typically have 3 to 4 videos a week, and I would love to have you keep coming by. Thanks for all the love and support you guys give. Using my affiliate links, watching the commercials even, it all helps me keep producing videos. So thanks for all you do, and as always, I will see you very soon in another video. Bye everybody.